I caught my girlfriend with her affair partner in a hotel room, exposed it, and she lost her job. I had always trusted her. She was everything I thought I wanted in a partner: loving, caring, and someone I could build a future with. But everything came crashing down the moment I saw her in that hotel room with him. My heart sank as I watched from the corner, hidden and helpless, as they laughed and shared intimate moments. The betrayal was clear, and it cut deep. I never imagined something like this would happen to me. To find the woman I loved, the one I thought was loyal, caught in the act of cheating was an unimaginable blow. But I had to act. I had to confront her, expose the truth, and make sure the world knew exactly what she had done. The consequences for her were severe, but they were of her own making. She lost everything, and I was the one who made sure of it. It is easy to assume that betrayal only happens in movies or novels, in those dramatic moments where the main character's life shatters before their eyes. But when it happens to you, when the person you love with all your heart turns out to be someone completely different, it is a feeling that words can hardly describe. I had always seen our relationship as perfect. We had been together for 2 years, and I thought we were building something real, something lasting. I trusted her implicitly. But that trust started to falter a few weeks ago, though I did not see the warning signs immediately. Small things began to change. She became more distant, frequently stayed late at work, and seemed less engaged when we spent time together. She would always have an excuse, always have a reason for why she could not give me her full attention. I started to ignore my gut feeling, convincing myself I was overthinking it. After all, I trusted her. That all changed one Friday night. I was feeling particularly uneasy about her recent behavior. She had told me she was going out with friends, but something did not sit right with me. I knew she had a hotel room booked for the weekend for a work seminar, but I couldn't shake the nagging feeling in my chest. That night, I decided to follow her. I needed to know if my suspicions were true. What I found when I arrived at the hotel was nothing short of gut-wrenching. There she was, in the arms of another man, laughing and enjoying the moment as if nothing mattered. The shock of seeing her with someone else in such an intimate setting was almost more than I could bear. I felt like the ground had been ripped from beneath me, and my entire world had been shattered. Before this moment, everything in my life had seemed perfectly aligned. We met in college, both studying in different fields but somehow drawn to each other right from the start. She was intelligent, funny, and beautiful, the kind of person you imagine being with for the long haul. We spent hours talking about our dreams, our hopes for the future, and the life we would build together. I honestly thought I had found my soulmate. When we graduated, we moved in together. Things felt comfortable. We shared our little victories and navigated through the inevitable struggles of adulthood side by side. She had a decent job in marketing, and I worked as a software developer. We supported each other, celebrated our achievements, and made plans for our future. We even started talking about marriage. It felt like we were on the same page, that our relationship was one of those that would stand the test of time. But looking back, there were things I had chosen to overlook. My friends had started to mention that she seemed distant whenever they saw us out together. They noticed her becoming secretive about her phone, hiding it whenever I came into the room. She started going out with work friends more often, and I naively believed the excuses she gave me. After all, I loved her, and trust was something I valued deeply. However, something inside me had begun to feel off in the last few months. The way she looked at her phone all the time, her late nights, her sudden need for privacy, it all added up. But I pushed those thoughts away, dismissing them as unnecessary paranoia. I didn't want to believe that the woman I trusted the most could betray me. I could not have been more wrong. It all started when I noticed something strange one evening after work. She had been acting a bit odd all day, distracted, irritable, and distant. When I got home, she was already in the kitchen, pretending to be busy with dinner, but I could tell something was off. Her usual cheerfulness was missing, replaced by an air of unease that I couldn't shake. At first, I chalked it up to a rough day at work. But then, while we were sitting together on the couch, something happened that I could not ignore. Her phone rang, and without even thinking, she reached for it almost too quickly. I noticed a name flash on the screen, someone named Aaron, but before I could even ask about it, she immediately silenced the phone and slipped it back into her bag, her eyes darting away from mine. My heart skipped a beat. I had never seen her react like that to a call before. There was something in the way she acted that made me suspicious. She noticed my gaze lingering on her, and for the briefest moment, I saw guilt in her eyes. It was subtle, but it was there, and it left a deep pit in my stomach. I decided to wait before jumping to conclusions, but a feeling of dread settled over me. Over the next few days, I started noticing more red flags. She became more secretive with her phone, always turning it face down when she put it on the table, quickly locking it when I entered the room. And then there were the late-night texts that she would quickly hide as soon as I came into view. The behavior wasn't blatant, but it was enough to raise my suspicions. The turning point came when I happened to be at home alone one evening, and I received an unexpected call from one of her friends, a woman I barely knew. She sounded urgent and out of breath as she asked if I had heard from my girlfriend recently. It was strange for her to call me out of the blue, and her tone was unsettling. Is everything okay? I asked, trying to sound calm. Her voice trembled slightly as she replied, Listen, I know this might be hard to hear, but I think you need to check something. I don't know how to say this, but I think you need to look at your girlfriend's phone. I saw her with someone else. It's bad and I just don't want to see you hurt. The moment those words left her mouth, my stomach sank. I didn't want to believe it, but a part of me knew this was real. I had suspected something, but now I had confirmation that it wasn't just my imagination. My heart raced as I processed what she said, feeling the weight of betrayal settle in my chest. I thanked her, trying to sound as composed as possible, but I knew my mind was spinning with questions. Who was this person she was seeing? What had been going on behind my back? That night, I did what I had been avoiding for weeks. I went through her phone. I found messages that sent a chill down my spine. There was an ongoing conversation between her and a man named Aaron, someone I didn't know. They were clearly more than just friends. The messages were flirtatious, intimate, and the way they spoke to each other made it evident they had been meeting in secret. My worst fears had been confirmed. She had been having an affair for who knows how long. One text in particular caught my eye. It read, I can't wait to see you tonight. Let's make it special. I had to stop myself from throwing up. The betrayal stung more than I had imagined. I had trusted her, loved her, and now it felt like the foundation of everything we had built was crumbling beneath me. I spent hours going through the messages, reading over the plans they had made, and feeling the anger and hurt building inside me with each passing minute. I wasn't sure what hurt more, the fact that she had been cheating, or the fact that I had been blind to it all this time. It was like a veil had been lifted, and suddenly, everything she had said and done in the past few months seemed like lies. I knew I had to confront her. I couldn't let this go on any longer. But I wasn't sure how to approach the situation. I didn't want to make any rash decisions, but I was filled with a rage and a sense of betrayal that I couldn't ignore. The next day, I got an opportunity to confront her when she told me she was going to meet with her work friends for dinner. This was the perfect time to act. I didn't want to give her a chance to cover her tracks or delete anything, so I decided to follow her. I waited until she left, and then I got in my car, following her discreetly from a distance. She drove to a hotel on the outskirts of town, a place I had never heard her mention before. My heart raced in my chest as I parked a few blocks away and watched her walk into the lobby. I could feel the blood rush to my face as the reality of what was happening hit me. She had gone there to meet Aaron. I was not sure what to do next. Should I walk in and confront her? Should I just leave and let her continue this affair? The rage in my chest pushed me forward. I decided to go in and confront her. I couldn't allow myself to let this moment slip away. As I entered the hotel, I could see her sitting with a man at the bar. It was unmistakable. This was Aaron. They were laughing, leaning in close, and sharing drinks. My heart shattered. This was the man she had been sneaking around with behind my back. I couldn't stand it any longer. I walked up to her, my voice shaking with anger as I called her name. Her eyes widened in shock as she turned to face me, her face going pale when she realized what was happening. Aaron's expression turned to one of confusion, then to embarrassment as he stood up and moved away, realizing the situation was about to get very uncomfortable. I looked at my girlfriend, my voice trembling with hurt. What is this? Why did you do this to me? Her face was a mix of guilt and disbelief, but she didn't answer. Instead, she tried to walk away, but I stopped her. We're done, I said firmly. I know everything. You have betrayed me, and I cannot continue with someone who cannot respect me. The silence between us felt suffocating as I stood there, watching her try to gather her composure. I could see the regret and guilt on her face, but it wasn't enough to erase the pain that had already taken root in my chest. For the first time, I felt like a stranger to her, someone who no longer mattered in the equation. Why? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Why would you do this to me? To us? She hesitated, looking everywhere except at me. I could tell that her mind was racing, probably thinking of 100 excuses, but there was nothing she could say that would make it right. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words never came. Instead, she just stared at me, her eyes searching for a way out, but there was no easy escape from this. Aaron, who had been standing a few feet away, finally spoke. Listen, man. I turned on him, my anger flaring again. Stay out of this, I snapped, my voice sharp. You don't get to say anything. This is between me and her. He raised his hands in surrender, taking a step back, clearly realizing that this was not the time or place for him to intervene. He cast one last uncertain glance at my girlfriend before he turned and walked away, disappearing into the lobby. I could hear the faint sound of his footsteps retreating, but it felt like my world had come to a halt, leaving me alone with the person who had broken me. I turned back to her, my gaze cold and unwavering. How long? I asked, the question hanging in the air, as if the answer would somehow provide me with the closure I desperately needed. She swallowed hard, struggling to meet my eyes. A few months, she admitted quietly. It started innocently, but it just happened. A few months, I repeated, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and disbelief. You have been lying to me for months, sneaking around, betraying me, and all for what? A few months of excitement with someone else. Her lips quivered as she struggled to hold back tears. I'm sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. I never wanted to hurt you, but I didn't know how to stop it once it started. The words hung in the air, and I could feel the weight of them crushing me. She didn't even seem to understand the extent of what she had done. She was sorry, but it wasn't enough. Sorry didn't undo the lies, the secrecy, or the trust that had been shattered beyond repair. Sorry, I repeated bitterly, the taste of the word sour on my tongue. Sorry isn't enough. You've destroyed everything we had. Everything I believed in. How could you think that I would just forgive you? How could you think I would just let this go? She stepped forward, reaching out to me, but I stepped back, not wanting her touch. It felt foreign now, like something I didn't want or need. Please, just listen to me, she pleaded, her voice breaking. I never wanted to hurt you. No, I interrupted, shaking my head. You didn't want to hurt me? Then why did you do it? Why didn't you come to me if you were unhappy? Why didn't you talk to me before it got this far? She was silent for a moment, her eyes welling up with tears. I didn't know how, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I didn't know how to tell you. But I thought if I kept it hidden, it wouldn't hurt you as much. But I was wrong. I was so wrong. I looked at her with contempt, feeling a coldness in my chest that I had never felt before. You should have trusted me enough to come to me. But instead, you chose to betray me behind my back. And now, all I can think about is how much I've been deceived. She took a step back, tears streaming down her face. I never wanted this. I never wanted to lose you. Please don't leave me. We can work through this. We can fix it. But I knew deep down that it was too late. There was no fixing this. No amount of pleading or apologizing would undo the damage she had caused. Trust, once broken, was nearly impossible to rebuild. I felt a weight lift from my shoulders as the anger and betrayal surged through me. It wasn't just about the affair. It was about the lies, the manipulation, the disrespect. She had shown me who she truly was, and I couldn't unsee it. I didn't want to. I'm done, I said, my voice firm and resolute. This is over. I can't keep pretending everything is fine when I know what you've done. The finality of my words seemed to hit her harder than anything else I had said. She stared at me as if waiting for me to take it back, but I knew I wouldn't. I had already made up my mind. There was no turning back from this. She collapsed onto the chair in the hotel lobby, burying her face in her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. The sight of her breaking down in front of me should have softened my heart, but instead, it only reinforced my decision. I wasn't her savior. I wasn't the person who could fix her mistakes. She had to face the consequences of her actions on her own. I'm leaving, I said, turning away from her, my heart heavy with the weight of what had just transpired. Don't try to contact me again. As I walked out of the hotel, I could feel the weight of the past few months crashing down on me. It was over. And while the pain still lingered, there was also a sense of relief. I was free from the lies. Free from the person who had betrayed me. And although it would take time to heal, I knew I was better off without her. In the days that followed, everything seemed to fall apart at once. It felt like my life had been uprooted, with the reality of what had just transpired settling in like a heavy fog. The betrayal was hard to digest, but the hardest part was accepting that the woman I had once trusted with everything had deceived me in the most painful way possible. I couldn't stop replaying that moment at the hotel, where everything I had believed in had shattered before my eyes. The first few days after I left the hotel were filled with a mix of anger, confusion, and disbelief. I didn't know whether to feel relief that it was finally over or sorrow that something I thought was so real had turned out to be a lie. It was hard to focus on anything else, as my thoughts constantly drifted back to her. The lies, the secrets, the affair that she had carried out in front of me for months. But even with all the emotional chaos, I knew I couldn't look back. The damage had been done. I didn't want to be someone's second choice. I didn't want to be the person they kept around while they searched for someone better, someone more exciting. That wasn't love. That was manipulation. I spent the next few days reflecting on the relationship and everything that had led to this point. I thought about the good times we had shared, the dates, the trips, the conversations, but now, everything seemed tainted by the knowledge that it had all been built on a foundation of lies. The moments that once brought me comfort now felt hollow and fake. I blocked her on every platform, removing her from my life entirely. It was painful at first, but it was necessary. I needed to rid myself of any lingering connection to the person who had betrayed me. I couldn't afford to hold on to someone who had shown me so much disrespect. Blocking her was my way of taking control, of making sure that I could start the healing process without being constantly reminded of the hurt she had caused. The hardest part, however, was dealing with the aftermath of the affair. She didn't take it well when I cut ties with her. I began receiving text messages and emails, all filled with apologies and pleas for reconciliation. She claimed that she had made a huge mistake, that she was willing to change, and that she loved me. But I knew better than to fall for it. This wasn't about love, this was about guilt. She was trying to manipulate me into forgiving her, but I had already made up my mind. As the days passed, the situation continued to escalate. One morning, I woke up to a call from her boss at work. Apparently, she had been suspended pending an investigation into her conduct. My mind immediately raced, and I couldn't help but wonder if the affair had somehow become public knowledge. It turned out that her affair partner had worked at the same company, and rumors had started to spread. The company had a strict policy about workplace relationships, especially ones that involved such betrayal, and her actions had been deemed a violation of their ethics standards. I didn't feel sorry for her. I had no sympathy for the mess she had created. She had made her own bed, and now she had to lie in it. The idea that she was facing the consequences of her actions didn't bring me any sense of satisfaction. It was just the reality of what happens when you betray someone's trust. I had been left heartbroken, but she was now facing the fallout from her own decisions. As for her career, it was uncertain. The investigation could potentially lead to her being fired, and if that happened, it would be a direct result of her own poor choices. She had let her personal life spill into her professional life, and now both were in jeopardy. I didn't tell her this, of course. I didn't owe her anything. I simply wished her the best of luck as she dealt with the fallout of her actions. I knew that she had to face the consequences of what she had done, just as I had to deal with the pain and confusion that came from being betrayed. She had taken everything from me, my trust, my sense of security, my happiness, but I wasn't going to let her take my peace of mind too. The first few weeks after the breakup were difficult, to say the least. I struggled with moments of loneliness, but I also found strength in the fact that I had made the right decision. It was painful to let go, but it was liberating at the same time. I realized that I was better off without her. No matter how much I had once loved her, no matter how much I had invested in the relationship, I couldn't allow myself to be with someone who didn't value me the way I deserved. I started focusing more on myself. I spent time with friends and family, people who had supported me throughout the entire ordeal. They reminded me that I was worthy of respect and love, and that I didn't need to settle for less. It was hard to believe at first, but slowly I began to heal. I started rediscovering parts of myself that I had neglected during the relationship. I went back to hobbies I had put on hold, and I reconnected with my passions. The weight on my shoulders began to lift, and I started to realize that I had the power to rebuild my life. In the end, I found closure. I had confronted the truth, and I had made a decision that was in my best interest. I learned that it is better to walk away from a toxic situation than to stay and continue to suffer. I had given her my trust, and she had broken it. But I was no longer going to let her mistakes define me. How would you have reacted if you were in this situation? Let us know your thoughts. Leave a comment below, and if you enjoyed this story, do not forget to like, subscribe, and press the bell icon to stay updated with all our latest content.